Hi everyone, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So just a quick Sunday video to check in on the problems in Los Angeles, pretty much obviously manufactured by Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, and his ilk in an attempt to sow discord and potentially bait Democrats into confrontations so that they can then claim that Democrats are always on the side of criminals and that they represent the actual law in this country, when in reality most of this, even if not all of it is completely untrue, most of it is completely untrue. And so first thing to say is that I genuinely hope and pray that those who are demonstrating do their utmost to remain as peaceful as possible. Demonstrations were demonstrated, no pun intended, by Mahatma Gandhi in his day. He insisted on peaceful demonstrations because if you start getting violent, then you give the other side something to work with. And so it's incredibly counterproductive no matter how righteous you feel about a situation. So I'm hoping that this does not descend into that. However, I also have to say that when I look at the astrology, there is also definite cause for concern, because you can see a number of cycles coalescing all at the same time involving key players in the drama, most especially, of course, the orange guy. He's always in the middle of everything, and you always look to his chart to see what that's doing, to try to calibrate what might or might not happen. But there's also Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, because ordinarily he would have called in the state National Guard if he felt it was necessary, and Trump overrode that and sent in the federal National Guard, which hasn't happened since segregation. And it's, of course, a major overreach, but this is what Trump always does. It's his playbook. He thrives on division, domination, and outrage. I was listening to someone today in regard to the prosecution of cases and how ordinarily the Justice Department under every president pretty much wins all their cases, or nearly all their cases, because they pick good cases they can win, both criminally and in civil matters. And now, for the first time ever, they're losing more than they're winning, because essentially they're bringing in garbage cases that don't make any sense, and that's why the judiciary is pushing back. So we know all of this, but in the astrology, the key is we're headed toward a full moon, and this happens midweek, and now we're on Sunday, so Wednesday, I mean, it's a build-up. It's going to be in the 20-degree range of Gemini, Sagittarius. Well, that's right across where you have Trump's planets, because he too has his sun and moon there. And wouldn't you know it, Gavin Newsom happens to be in those degrees Virgo rising, which makes a cross to those degrees, plus he has his Mars in Sagittarius at those degrees. So basically, this full moon is going to affect him in a big way. And, you know, full moons are the kind of energy that can ratchet up emotions and make it more likely for things to reach, you know, a fever pitch, to which we can add that the American Mars is there as well. The American Mars is 21 degrees Gemini. And so all of this is coalescing into a bit of a dangerous cocktail, to which you add that the transiting Uranus, which is a much slower transit, of course, in the late stages of Taurus, squares the American moon. And so this tells you that the whole country is watching, and that the whole country might get involved, and that the whole thing can get pretty nasty. Furthermore, there's more. The transiting Mars, of course, is much faster, but it's in a tricky place, although in a way it could be worse. It could also be where the American Mars is and it isn't. In this sense, luckily, because the other two are not so lucky. You know, the Uranus definitely isn't. But the transiting Mars in the 25-degree Leo, well, that range, that's going toward Trump's natal Mars and is ascendant over the next week or so, this increases his anger, his combativeness, the instinct to fight, to dominate, to be aggressive, essentially. So it's definitely part of it for him as well. The question mark here is where Elon Musk will be in all this, because he too is definitely affected by the full moon, the way that full moon cuts across Gemini Sagittarius affects his 12th house Venus, so he might be part of it as well. So the question is how to deal with this. Well, obviously stay informed. I'm trying to tune into the people I trust most in terms of reporting what's going on the ground, different opinions that make sense to me. But in the meantime, there will also be other demonstrations, by the way. I know there's one coming up in a week. If you're demonstrating anywhere, please, please heed that advice. Keep it civil. Maybe you do some yelling, some screaming, whatever, but don't start throwing things, breaking things. That's not cool. That's how a movement gets in trouble. It's just not a good idea. And other than that, I think we just need to wait this one out, even though I will admit that when I look at the astrology for the rest of this month and even next month, you kind of go gulp. I've seen this before. Like, for instance, in July, we've got two big stations of Saturn and Neptune, which last year correlated with a lot of difficulty, to put it mildly. That was the turn in the election map, when the Biden debate and then Kamala entered the scene and so forth. So it's tricky territory. But if we're looking for how would I say this, like the unifying principle, or what I think tips the scales, is that at best, if we see it through the lens of Trump's fortunes in this, then this is where I've been saying, for example, in his feud with Musk, he's the one at risk because of where Jupiter is headed into the cardinal part of the chart, Cancer now, a place that is much less favorable than where it has been for the last year. And I say this because I've observed these patterns in his chart repeatedly. He really dislikes planets in these degrees of the cardinal signs. And so the most likely thing from him is overreach, overdoing, miscalculating, and then getting in trouble as a result. That's the bottom line. And yes, this would apply to his feud with Musk, which now in a sense is moved a bit into the background, but it applies to this other level as well. And I would say first stop in this conflict, the first thing we keep an eye on, okay, what is going to happen midweek, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with the full moon? That'll give me more visibility for going forward. Then the next step is getting a little bit later into the month so that the Mars gets beyond the degrees where it's in. And then I'll be able to probably say a little more from that point forward. All right, I'll stop there for now. More as this thing develops over the next few days.